Oh, so we have a new episode of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch to talk about. On the heels of last episode, when they were able to capture what appears to be the phenomenon itself, or some aspect of it, on camera, when they shot a rocket up into the air and the rocket exploded. Well, right before the rocket went into the air and exploded, there was this amorphous blob thing that was in the air, this phantasmal thing that was reflecting the light or something. And when it was about 30 or so feet up in the air, and when the rocket struck it, it exploded. So a huge thing that happened in the last episode, and this is going to follow up on those events. So let's talk about them. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, so I made some notes as I was going along in this episode, and I'm just going to read through my notes here. Oh yeah, so to begin, we just review the crazy thing that happened last time when the rocket was blasted out of the sky at 31 feet by some presence that was captured on camera. Oh yeah, and we discovered in this episode, as they were combing through the videos, in one still frame, one single frame of video, right when the rocket exploded, a UFO appeared, a little point of light. I think it was over the mesa, and coinciding with the explosion of the rocket. So was that interacting with the amorphous blob that was there? Was the UFO the actual mechanism that destroyed the rocket, or was it the amorphous blob? Were they acting together? Because the amorphous blob was right at the level where the explosion happened. So it would make sense if that were some sort of force field or something that the rocket had struck, or, you know, some sort of outer layer of the anomaly, you know, that it could have struck. But at the same time, we have that UFO that appeared right then. So it makes sense that those two elements may have been working together in some way. Truly, truly amazing and fascinating. And yeah, so meanwhile, they have begun excavating the ridge. Now that's huge, right? We've been wanting them to dig up the ridge ever since they discovered that huge metal thing, dome-shaped thing under the ridge. There was some huge thing, and in this season they were able to isolate either part of it or some similar or, you know, adjacent structure right in that area that was more of a vertical structure that began just a few feet below the surface of the ridge and extending all the way through the length or the height of the mesa. Is that related to the big dome-shaped thing? I don't know, but they're going to find out, or they were. So they begin excavating there. And as soon as they do, the 1 gigahertz frequency returns. The electronics on the crane malfunction. Obviously, they have had a series of electronics failures and equipment failures at Skinwalker Ranch. The phenomenon seems to resist being studied, and it will deactivate their equipment. They've had a bunch of camera failures and other failures making the show, and they've talked about this in interviews. And so it's really intriguing that the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch will show enough of itself to intrigue scientists and others into further studying it. You know, even, you know, going so far as to reveal itself to one government agent or employee that actually kickstarted BASS and OSAP. If it hadn't revealed itself at that precise time to that precise person, OSAP wouldn't have existed, and neither would ATIP nor our present age of disclosure. So in a way, that one event brought about our present age of UFO disclosure, or, you know, whatever, however further along in that process we are. But at the same time, it will deactivate a whole bunch of equipment and electronics to delay studying it, which is fascinating to say the least. It baits you on, and then it builds a wall to prevent you from going any further. So super fascinating. Is it one of those things where you can't progress any further until you are ready. You know, like Haim Eshed said, famously, we won't be ready to interact with the phenomenon or for disclosure until we are ready, until we understand what the nature of space and spaceships are. Now, I've talked a little bit about what that might entail, and I've got some more information on that I'll share soon. Let's see. So yeah, but they start digging. They get the frequency. The frequency vanishes when they stop moving the boulders, which is interesting. And the boulders, they have to stop moving the boulders for fear of a landslide. So that kind of slows down the investigation, or the digging of the ridge, is this fear of a landslide. So my hopes for them actually cracking open the ridge and getting to the juicy the juicy center of the Tootsie Pop seem to have eroded with the fear of this landslide, to mix my metaphors. So at this same time, Brandon Fugal and the Attorney General show up to talk about the helicopter that appeared in the last episode, right when the rocket blew up and the anomaly appeared. Just at that same time, a mysterious helicopter appeared. The helicopter didn't have a transponder or correspond to any known civilian aircraft that could have been flying, which leaves the question, is it a military black helicopter? Well, this seems to intrigue the Attorney General of the state, so he wants to talk about it. And he does, and he goes in there talking about how, this is a sovereign state and we have rights, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. So that's cool, right? So the Attorney General is on the case. He's on their side. At least he's saying he's going to be on their side. He seems genuine, and further events seem to indicate that he is. So we'll get to that. And meanwhile, they have another experiment they're going to do in this episode. They're going to release some projectiles, some little spheres from the helicopter. Brandon's brother is going to pilot this helicopter, and they are going to drop these spheres over the triangle, and I think over the other area. They go up in the helicopter. As soon as they begin the experiment, the 1 gigahertz frequency returns. Thomas Winterton, who was injured by some phenomenon on the ranch before, with the serious skull injury, where it would seem to be caused some sort of hemorrhaging in his skull. Well, as soon as this 1 gigahertz frequency returns, he develops a pain and has to leave the ranch. So that's alarming that it's continuing to harass him or bother him physically. And, potentially that could be very bad. So that's scary stuff. The helicopter, meanwhile, climbs higher to repeat the experiment, but the winds keep on knocking it out of the way when they get over the triangle. So again, it's trying to delay or prevent them studying the triangle. Meanwhile, it gives them just enough juicy nuggets to lead them to study the triangle. It shows them that there's an anomaly there, but it won't let them study it. So super fascinating. But they see lightning and there's some rain in the distance, and they abort the mission with one ball left to drop. I'm not going to make a joke there. So a few days later, Thomas Winterton comes back. He's fine. And they review the data with Brandon Fugal and the Attorney General. And the GPS shows crazy movements of the helicopter. Movements that didn't happen. And they're able to pinpoint when the crazy movements start, that didn't start in real life, but on the GPS display of their movements, they're able to pinpoint exactly when the movements become anomalous, out of sync with reality. And that's right when the 1 gigahertz frequency comes on and Thomas has his health episode, or his scare. So, And they also try different filters on the videos and mess with the videos. This is Eric Bard doing this and really studying the videos closely. And he's able to see that there is actually a UFO over the ranch in the general vicinity of the helicopter, seeming to kind of mirror its movements or follow its movements or something. Not exactly following it, but kind of following it. So that was really interesting that there was another UFO right when these winds were rocking the helicopter and preventing it from going over the triangle. So obviously the question is, did the UFO cause those winds? Did a UFO blow up the rocket? Did it cause the winds? And we've seen this wind pattern before where winds have been buffeting the helicopter and preventing them from doing what they wanted to do, or, making it more difficult for them. And I believe there was a UFO captured during that event as well. So very intriguing that the UFOs seem to be doing this. It's not the ranch acting on its own doing this, unless you could say that the UFOs are extensions of the ranch, which is entirely possible, right? So, whether that means a probe or a drone or, the actual arm of the ranch, the functioning arm of the ranch doing something, the hand of the ranch, potentially, all on the table, super interesting. I don't know what it means, but it's super interesting. And the Attorney General then returns to the conversation of the helicopter that appeared when the rocket exploded. And he confirms that it was a Black Hawk helicopter launched from a nearby military airfield. But when he inquired about it, they refused to tell him what its mission was. Brandon says this is absolute evidence that we're being monitored. So, really, really interesting. Yes, they are definitely being monitored. There have been surveillance planes that have been surveilling the property and grid patterns, seeming to be mapping it out, which is really interesting because, the government has had years to study Skinwalker Ranch. Why didn't they map out a grid pattern then? Or do they just do this periodically? And that occurred in the last season, by the way. I want to say that occurred in like the first episode of season 3, when this, this plane is caught overhead over the ranch, going this crazy grid pattern, seeming to be mapping it out in some way. So what's the deal? And apparently, Brandon in other interviews or in interviews has said that it wasn't the only plane. There have been other planes and other signs of surveillance. So, in study by the government on the ranch. They seem to be actively interested in what is going on there, monitoring what is going on there, monitoring the investigation that is happening there, and also seeming to just study the ranch itself. Otherwise, why would they be mapping it? But again, they've had years to map Skinwalker Ranch, so why didn't they do this earlier? Was there some reason why? Or do they just do this continuously and periodically to see if there are any changes on the ranch that they want to know about? What do you think, guys? Why are they doing that? What is the government's involvement there? Why do they send a Black Hawk helicopter there? Is it because of the UFO activity, perhaps? We've seen countless occasions where the military have gone to intercept UFOs, even firing at them, and sometimes escorting them. Whether in a friendly way or not, I don't know. So could the UFO activity have stimulated the military response to go in there and see what was going on and to discourage the UFOs from harming anybody? I mean, that's the nicest way to look at it, the nicest spin you could put on it. Or you could say there's some sort of more sinister motivation going on. But I don't know what that is, which way the pendulum swings. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this recap and my thoughts on this latest episode of Skinwalker Ranch, Please give this video a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. And join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there, and it would be super helpful if you would share this video when it drops on social media. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on my channel to check out, so go enjoy some of those if you have time, and I will see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Roads, signing out.